Hi guys, thanks so much for visiting my channel. Today we're going to learn how to make a reusable Swiffer pad cover. This particular pad uses a bobble stitch on the bottom, which makes it very durable and great for both wet and dry mopping, and the top straps use a single crochet ribbing technique, which make it very easy to remove and attach the cover, and also makes it so that cover sits very tightly on your Swiffer sweeper. Alright, let's get started. The materials we need for this project include worsted weight yarn or number 4 yarn. I use Bernat Handicrafter cotton yarn, which is 100% cotton. You'll need approximately 110 yards or 100 meters of yarn. If you're using these small skeins of Bernat Handicrafter cotton yarn, you'll need approximately 1 skein plus a third of a second skein. You'll also need a 5mm crochet hook, optionally a 4mm crochet hook, scissors, a yarn or tapestry needle, optionally stitch markers, and if you're trying to make a reusable cover for a mop that's a different brand or size than the Swiffer sweeper, you'll need a tape measure. We're going to make our mop bottom first, which has the bobble stitches on it, by taking our 5mm crochet hook and chaining 32. If you guys are interested in seeing the written version of this pattern, you can check it out on my website, CalicoRadio. I've included a link to the pattern in the description. This is also great for those who are interested in making a cover that's a different size than the standard Swiffer sweeper, because I include the gauge there as well. Alright, and now as you see here, we've created our foundation chain of 32 hooks. In our first row, we're going to place single crochets across the entire row. So you don't want to go into this first chain, but this second chain right here. You're going to insert your hook into that second chain from your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. And that's your first stitch right there, that little V. I'm going to insert a stitch marker here to make it a bit easier to find when we're working our second row. So you're going to single crochet again into that next stitch right here, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. And again, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. And you're going to do that across the entire row. Alright, and now we're ready to place our last single crochet into our first row, which will go right here into this last chain. And that concludes our first row of single crochets, which you can see right here. Since we started with 32 chains in our foundation chain but worked into that second chain from our hook, we should now have 31 stitches. Which we have, and you can easily see this first stitch we worked by that stitch marker. Now for our second row, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. So we're going to ignore that chain we just worked, which is right here, and we're going to work into this first stitch here by placing a single crochet. So the bobble stitch is an alternating pattern between single crochet and a bobble stitch, and you're always going to start with a single crochet. So we're going to single crochet into that first stitch like so, and I'm again going to place a stitch marker into that first stitch just to make it easier to find when we work our way back. And we're now ready to work our first bobble into this next stitch right here. Now the bobble stitch is just 4 half-work double crochets into a single stitch. To do that, we're going to yarn over as we would with a double crochet. We're going to insert our hook into that next stitch, like so. We're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. So now we have 2 loops on our hook. And we're going to work 3 more half worked double crochets into this stitch right here. So we'll eventually have 5 loops on our hook. So we're again going to yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. So now we have 3 loops on our hook. And again, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. So now we have 4 loops on our hook. And again, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. So we should now have 5 loops on our hook. And to complete this stitch, we're going to yarn over and pull through all 5 loops. And you can now see those 4 half-worked double crochets into that single stitch right there. To make this bobble actually pop, we need to work a single crochet into this next stitch. As we place that single crochet, you'll begin to see that previous bobble stitch really pop. And that's our first bobble, guys. Okay, now we'll continue following this alternating pattern by placing a bobble stitch into this next stitch right here. So we're again going to yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Again, yarn over, insert your hook into that same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Again, yarn over, insert your hook into that same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Again, yarn over, insert your hook into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. So now you have 5 loops on your hook. So we're going to yarn over and pull through all 5 loops to conclude that bobble stitch. And again, to get that full bobble effect, you're going to want to single crochet into that next stitch to really make that bobble pop. And we're going to keep following that alternating pattern until the end of this row. I'll meet you guys at the end. So we've just finished working our last bobble, and now we're ready to place our last single crochet into this final stitch, which we marked with a stitch marker, to make that last bobble pop. So we're going to work that final single crochet, and that's our first row of bobbles. And you can see the back is relatively flat, while the front right here is where all the bobbles are. For rows 3 through 14, we're going to repeat rows 1 and 2 7 times. So when you reach the end of row 14, you should have 7 rows of bobbles. Row 1 was just single crochet, and row 2 was an alternating pattern between single crochet and the bobble stitch to create our bobbles. Here is what rows 3 and 4 look like, which is your second row of bobbles, your third row, your fourth row, your fifth row, your sixth row, and lastly your 7th row of bobbles, which is the end of row 14. To finish up your mop bottom, we're going to take a 4mm crochet hook if you have it. If you don't, a 5mm will work fine as well. And we're going to single crochet along the edge of your mop bottom, like so. So to do that, we're going to chain one and turn our work. And you can see there's no stitches here directly to work into, but we're going to just kind of eyeball it and make do. And the reason to use a 4mm crochet hook rather than a 5 is it makes these single crochets a bit tighter, it makes that edge a bit crisper, but it's a very minimal difference. So if you don't have that hook, that's absolutely fine. You can use your 5mm as well. So we're single crocheting around our mop bottom because we're eventually also going to single crochet around the top straps that we'll sew onto this mop bottom. And when we sew through 2 layers of single crochet stitches, it's going to make that seam very tight and very secure, so even when you're doing the toughness mopping, the seam should not come undone. So as we reach the end, we're going to place our last few single crochets into our mop bottom, and when we're done, we're going to slip stitch and tie off our yarn. And you can now cut your yarn because we finished making our mop bottom. The bobbles will eventually face the floor and be the part that we scrub with, that we mop with, and the flatter part will lay flush with our swiffer. Alright, now we can begin making our top straps. We're now going to set our mop bottom aside and make the 2 top straps that we will sew to the mop bottom. To do this, we're going to take our yarn and a 5mm hook and chain 13. Once we have our foundation chain of 13 chains, as you can see here, we're going to begin our first row. We're going to go into not this first chain, but this second chain right here. We're going to single crochet across the entire first row. To do this, we're going to insert our hook into that second chain from our hook. We're going to yarn over, we're going to pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. And into that next stitch, again, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. And again, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. And you're going to do that for the rest of this row. To finish up this row, we're going to place our last single crochet into this last chain right here. And that's the end of your first row of single crochet. Since we started with 13 chains in our foundation chain, but went into the second chain from our hook, we should have 12 stitches, which we do right here. For your second row, we're going to begin the single crochet ribbing technique. So we should chain 1 and turn our work. And we're going to continue single crocheting, but we're only going to go into the back loop. So that's our chain, and this is our first stitch. So you're going to single crochet into this back loop only. And here's another back loop right here. So to do that, we're going to insert our hook into that back loop only of that first stitch. We're going to yarn over, we're going to pull up a loop, we're going to yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. Again, we're going to insert our hook into that back loop only, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. And again, insert your hook into that back loop only, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through the 2 loops on your hook. And you're going to do that for the rest of this row. We're going to place our last single crochet for this row in this last back loop, as you see here. And that concludes row 2. You can see the ribbing is already starting to form. That row of single crochet back loop only is slightly on a slant. You're going to continue doing that for rows 3 through 16. Chain 1, turn your work, single crochet into the back loop only until you have 16 rows. And this will be the final product once you've worked all 16 rows. You can see this nice ribbing pattern has formed. We're now going to take a 4mm hook if you have one. If you don't, that's totally fine. You can still use your 5mm hook. And we're going to single crochet around 3/4 of the panel, working initially back into row 16 along the long ribbed edge and then into our foundation chain. We want to leave one side of the ribbing free so it remains stretchy. All right, we're going to chain one and turn our work. And we're going to single crochet then around 3/4 of that panel. And again, we're using that 4mm crochet hook because it makes those single crochets a bit smaller, so it makes that border of single crochets a bit tighter and a bit firmer. As we reach the end of that third side, we're going to place our final single crochets and we're going to slip stitch and tie off. Unlike the mop bottom, we're not going to cut our yarn short, however. We're going to keep that tail, that yarn tail, very long because we're going to use that yarn to sew this top strap directly onto the mop bottom. And this is your first completed top strap. You now want to repeat this portion of the pattern to create your second strap. This is what you should have once you've finished your second top strap. We now want to sew the upper straps onto the mop bottom. So you want to face the bobbles away from you and place the top straps on the flat portion of the mop bottom. You want to make sure that the ribbing that we did not single crochet around is facing inward for both straps. To get started, we're going to take that long tail that we left on our top strap and we're going to thread the yarn through our needle. Once you thread your needle, you want to take those two panels, the top strap and the mop bottom, and you want to try and get them so they sit flush with one another as much as possible. And you can begin sewing those two panels together by inserting your needle into the top strap and the mop bottom like so. And you can see those two panels are still aligned and pulling through. And I'm going to go back in through those stitches again just so it's very secure. And once a small loop has formed, I'm going to stick my needle through that loop. I'm going to go into the next stitch through both panels and do the same thing. You can really sew these panels up however you prefer. I just prefer this type of stitch. And then back up through that loop. It's going to create this nice straight seam. And again through the next stitch. And it's totally fine if you don't have a 1-to-1 ratio of stitches when you're sewing these two panels together. If you have to go through one stitch multiple times, it's more about getting these two panels to align well and to make sure everything's very secure so when you're mopping, everything stays together nicely. And as we sew together the final stitches, I will probably go in a couple times just to make sure everything is secure. And our first strap is now attached. You can see A nice seam has formed between these two panels. And now we want to do the same thing and sew on our second strap. And once you've sewn on your second strap, you can weave in all of your remaining loose ends and you're all done. This is what the final product will look like. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you have any comments or feedback, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. I'll also leave a link to the written pattern on my website in the description below. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to contact me through there as well. Thanks again. Bye.